I absolutely love these Gorilla carts. We've been using them for a couple years for sports purposes for kids. They work great around the house, outdoors. They're just great multi-purpose carts. About maybe 150 bucks retail price at Home Depot. These are the, I believe, 8-pound version or 800-pound versions. Some of the cheap ones you can find actually have a much lesser capacity, and then if you look at the handles, they're much less beefy. Some of them don't have this little thing here. So this is the specific model that I like, and then I'll show the model number. That's the specific model number, GCG 2140. Now, if you use them all the time, there's a couple mods that I absolutely love. They come really well put together out of the box. I had a flat tire on the first of 3 that we've had, but they had no problem just sending us a new one. All right, so these are my top 3 mods to make your Gorilla cart much more useful out of the box. Mod number 1, which isn't really a mod so much as just kind of an accessory, is some sort of bottom to it. There's a couple reasons for this one. There's various types of like sports things, like little stakes for the ground and stuff that tend to slip through here. When you're at an event, you know, you're taking little like straw wrappers and stuff and throw them in here, so you're not littering. But a lot of stuff just tends to like fall through the bottom. Especially if you have little kids too. It's nice for them to be able to sit on something and play. So this is just some fake grass, extra fake grass we had from a backyard project. Threw it in here. It's really well. We didn't permanently adhere it down, so the kids can just sit on that. And it just kind of looks cool because it blends into the John Deere green, which anyone knows me knows that I love my John Deere tractor out there. So it looks good next to that too. Mod number 2 is a 2-inch tube here. A lot of times when you're taking these to an event, you know, there's no shade. Some of the ones that you buy online now have like a canopy that goes over the top and connects down like that. That's well and good, but I wanted to keep the steel durability and also be able to easily put in an umbrella, take it out, depending on the context of what we're doing. I like to put other things in there as well. For any sort of pole that you might want to put in, I elected to not have a stopper on the bottom, so when I put the pole in, it does sink all the way to the bottom, and instead I drilled a hole through the umbrella pole to keep it from falling all the way down into the ground. This is the way I've been doing that umbrella holder in the back. So I've been cutting these, let me see, to about 6 inches, maybe a little longer, and the size that I'm using is 2 inches outer length. Inside, yeah, it's like 1 5/8. So this is you know, what you'd use for the thing that's plugging in to the receiver of your truck. I thought I was using the actual receiver portion, but this is actually, you know, whatever, you know, is sliding into it like that. It's a pretty good, this one is super thick. That's like kind of insanely thick. It's going to be kind of hard to weld on there. All I really do is, you know, grind off a little bit with the paint, because that's all going to burn off anyway. It's really hard to weld this on well, because to get that seam like that when this is on the bottom, you know, you're trying to like tack it through the expanded sheet like that, which is not super easy or fun to do, but you can do it. You just got to make sure the paint's off and it'll come out okay. And then for any gaps there, I honestly just fill it with paint, because, you know, when water gets through there, it's going to rust. So you got to fill it. You either got to figure out how to like maneuver your welder to fill in all those gaps, or just fill it with paint or caulk or whatever, just to make sure it doesn't rust. An earlier kind of prototype that I made of this, I didn't make this tube long enough. And the consequence of that is when I put the pole in, it was way too wobbly. So this way, if I put the pole in and I want it to go all the way to the ground, even when it's windy, you know, there's enough clearance, let's call that 2 feet off the ground, from the ground to the top of this tube, that the pole will wobble a little bit, but it's not going to take off like Mary Poppins into the air when you have to go chasing your umbrella across the parking lot. Okay, mod number 3, and this one is not for the faint of project. This specific type of cart, and, you know, if you don't have a Gorilla cart, some of the other competitor models have the same type of hitch pin on the back. Now, normally when you put these together, I'm guessing like 99% of people probably do not do anything with this, but if you have like a tractor mower or do any sort of like light home and garden yard work, you'll notice that this little pin in here can easily be removed, and instead of putting like a lag bolt through there and a nylon lock nut on the bottom, they have this little quick release thing. And the really cool thing about that is that it allows you to take this off and use it like any other sort of tow behind equipment, like you would with like a tractor mower or any sort of like light home vehicle. All right, so the idea I had, since we have multiple of these carts, as well as other stuff that we may want to tow behind, is to leverage this. But the problem with the cart is that there's nothing to hook one onto. So you can tow this behind a vehicle, and like we modified our golf cart. We have a tractor mower over there, and you know, a rail tractor and other stuff. And we always have some sort of like hitch or like little weld tab on the back that we can pin this stuff onto just really quickly with the pin. But the cart itself does not have one on the back for towing something else behind that. What I've done here is figured out the design. I know I need to paint it. Where I created a drop link that I welded onto the bottom cross member here with these tabs, and of course everything is removable, so I can easily, if I can do this with one hand, I can easily take out this pin, pop it out like that, and it's like nothing's ever there. Now if you look at the design with the back axle on, you'll notice that the way they're designed this is really nice because it gives you a lot of clearance. I mean, you've got maybe about a foot of clearance for going over rocks and curbs and, you know, anything you want to go over. So what I didn't want to do was drop something below here and have it lose clearance. So instead I just decided to make these like little linkages out of 1-inch square tube stock, which is what I use for pretty much everything, to drop it down when I need to, hook on another cart. And then it also adds some degrees of freedom here as well. So if there's you know, little bumps, you know, it can go up and down. The cart behind it can go up and down. It can go side to side as well from this linkage on the back. So that's pretty cool. You might ask, why not put some tabs on the back here? You know, why not just take these two tabs? Why bother with taking off the rear axle and having two here and this whole complex linkage mechanism? A few reasons for that. One is mod number 2, which adds this receiver tube. When you're towing something behind, that any sort of linkage or the cart behind it could interfere if you're carrying an umbrella in this here. So I didn't want to put like a tab here, or even if I offset it. And if I put the tab here, I'm towing a cart behind it, and then I'm moving to the right. Well, that arm is going to swing this way and interfere with the umbrella pole. So I didn't want to do that. And then similarly, if you notice, there's another interference mechanism that you can have if you try to do a kind of a quicker and dirtier design, where these handles are not straight. They're intentionally bent there by maybe about 30 degrees. And that's cool because it allows you to put the handle up like that and rest it without it falling over. But the problem it creates is that when you're towing it behind something, it wants you to drop it lower to get the holes here to line up with whatever you're pinning it to in front of it. So the droppage mechanism, it serves a lot of purposes. You know, it gives you your degrees of freedom and the angle, but then it also works with the existing design of the handle and how it's bent to allow it to rest parallel to the ground like that, while still having these holes perpendicular to the ground. Because if it was like this, well, now look, the holes aren't perpendicular to the ground, and it's going to bind up when you're trying to tow it behind something else. Here is what a completed assembly looks like with multiple carts. This one's cut away a little bit so you can see through the bottom. You see, if you get the geometry just right, it'll drop at rest, it'll drop down to make this bar perfectly flush like that, or actually not flush, like parallel to the ground. And then the nice thing too about having this drop a little bit is that it gives it a little bit of cushion too. So like when you're pulling it, I probably need to put a pad there, and stopping it, it's not such an abrupt stop. So it makes it a little easier to kind of start like that, as opposed to like just trying to get the whole thing to move at one time, you know, because obviously once you get them weighted down, it's kind of difficult to move. If you are doing this, the actual length of these pieces, so this drop linkage, which is basically just an extender, the length of the 1-inch tube is 3 inches, so that's 1, 2, 3, and then each of these weld tabs is 1.5 inches long. So total, it's about 6 inches, a little less, because I didn't weld them straight onto the side because I wanted them to lap around this one here. And then this linkage here, you see, the 1-inch tube is still 3 inches long. The tabs are also 1.5 inches long. Obviously they don't need to be exactly that long. It's just what I had. And then when it connects to the next trailer, you see it's rotated 90 degrees. So this one, the tabs oriented the same way, and on this one they rotate 90 degrees. And then notice on this linkage too, they're welded to the side of the tube, whereas this one they're welded to the end of the tube. That way it can line up like that, as opposed to, because if you line them all up on the ends of the tube, which is the mistake I made the first time I did this, then when you go to link them together, you know, then it's like top, bottom, and it has play side to side. So this way it's just kind of hugging the next linkage, and there's no slop when you're actually pulling it, and it's not clinking all over the place. All right, I hope that was useful. I do love these carts. Again, I've been using them for a few years. Gorilla as a brand, I think they are made somewhere else, but you know, the product itself is really good. Buy them, and again, make sure you're getting the correct model, which has the ability to tow stuff, the ability to pin stuff onto it, and it's more probably like an 800-pound cart. The 400-pound cart, I did have one of those very briefly, and I just did not believe it was going to work for what we needed it to do. So thanks very much.